Hola, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidos a un live más. Esta vez quiero estar un poco más relajado con esto. He estado nervioso por estos nuevos lives que he estado presentando. Mucho gusto. Mi nombre es Iván Barba. Trabajo como abogado. Bendito sea Dios, tengo la licenciatura en Derecho. Y trabajo para un despacho americano llamado Shan Potts Law Offices, que está en Glendale, California. Y el objetivo de estos lives es más que nada presentarme, decirles que existe este despacho de abogados y que queremos ayudar a la gente. Queremos dar todas las visas que podamos y queremos, pues, más que nada darles a entender a estas personas que tienen posibilidades de quedarse en el país, ¿saben? Que pueden ser felices aquí con sus familias. Y pues sí, Shan Potts Law Offices es un despacho de inmigración. Es un despacho que tiene ya más de 25 años de experiencia y hacemos muchas clases de procesos. Por ejemplo, hacemos los famosos FOIAs, que significan Freedom of Information Act. Estos FOIAs pues nos ayudan a encontrar información sobre cualquier persona para así poder ayudarla y para así poder saber cuál es el proceso adecuado para esa persona y qué necesita. No sé por qué mi cámara desenfoca un poco, pero listo. Y estos procesos ayudan mucho a que pues podamos saber cuál es el formulario correcto para estas personas. ¿Me explico? Obviamente hacemos todos y cada uno de los tipos de visa que existen. Tenemos las humanitarian visas, las work visas, las investor visas, que son visas que incluso les damos a inversionistas dentro de Estados Unidos. Y pues sí, el despacho hace todo eso y más. Y estos lives también es para invitarlos a que síganos en las redes sociales, que por favor nos busquen, que si tienen algún familiar en Estados Unidos que tenga problemas con inmigración, que nos escriba, que nos mande mensaje, que ingrese a la página de internet de www.shanpots.com o que incluso vaya a nuestro TikTok o aquí a YouTube. El TikTok es Shan Potts Law Offices. Y este despacho puede ayudar a muchísimas personas, lo sé porque trabajo en él y lo sé porque estas personas han hecho mucho por migrantes. Entonces, es un despacho que yo plenamente recomiendo y es un despacho que, como digo, tiene 25 años de experiencia, por lo tanto, tiene mucha trayectoria el señor Shan Potts. Además de esto, también quisiera mostrarle 3 noticias importantes de migración. Estas noticias impactan a todo Estados Unidos y pueden impactar a esas personas que tanto quieres y que tanto les gustaría darles una consulta gratuita con nosotros. Así que, sin más preámbulo, vamos a ver la primera noticia que les tengo para ustedes el día de hoy.
Let's talk about this visa that the president has issued. It's going to make it a lot harder for people to enter the United States. The administration is proposing to skim up to 5 years of a traveler's social media history. It would apply to people coming in from 42 countries enrolled in the visa waiver program. CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camila Montoya Gavaz is here to explain this 5 years of social media.
That's right.
And what are they looking for?
Well, just to level set, Vlad, there are 42 countries on the so-called visa waiver program, and their citizens can come here to the U.S. typically without having to apply for a visa at a U.S. embassy or consulate abroad. That typically takes months or years, but they still have to submit an online application through a system overseen by Customs and Border Protection known as ESTA, so they can undergo vetting before coming to the
And
U.S.
these are just tourists, right?
Correct.
And we
or
don't-
business travelers.
But we don't have this with other, I mean, when I fly to Europe, I don't do anything other than show my passport.
Right, but the U.S. is now asking many of these applicants to submit about 5 years of their social media activity, 10 years of their email accounts, and also personal information related to their immediate relatives like siblings, spouses, and children, including their phone numbers and where they live around the world.
So what is the purpose?
The purpose, according to Customs and Border Protection, is to enforce an executive order issued by the president that he says is designed to prevent the entry of people who could pose a threat to national security or public safety. But the concern among critics is that this could deter tourism to the U.S. This could negatively impact the business and tourism travel industry here in the U.S. months before the U.S. gets ready to host the World Cup alongside Canada and Mexico next summer.
But who is the arbiter of someone's social media history? Is somebody criticizing the president somebody who would get denied a visa? Is somebody who criticizes U.S. policy as it pertains to Venezuela, Afghanistan, or any number of countries potentially going to be targeted? And where are the people who are all about limited government and having the government not intrude in your lives? This social media history sounds like, I mean, it's out there, it's in the public space, so we should be clear that you and I could find somebody's social media history, but why would they use that as a basis to allow someone to enter the country? Or not?
Well, again, the Trump administration would argue that this is only designed to root out bad actors who could potentially pose a threat to national security or public safety because of ties to terrorism or because of their criminal activity. But of course, privacy advocates and others believe that this could be a slippery slope and that protected ground could be reviewed and examined and heavily scrutinized by the U.S. government, especially in light of recent directives by the administration. For example, a USCIS, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services officials there have been tasked with identifying anti-American views and activities by applicants for green cards and asylum and U.S. citizenship. And of course, there are a lot of questions about what anti-American views and activities actually entail. But of course, the administration, again, would say that this is only meant to enhance the integrity of the system, not to infringe on someone's protected speech.
So remind me again what the administration said about what it hoped to do with people who were undocumented in this country when the president was campaigning. Something about only the worst of the worst and criminals, and remind me what he said and what ultimately transpired.
Well, the president promised on the campaign trail to oversee the largest deportation operation in American history and to mainly focus on the worst of the worst who are here illegally. But what we have seen is that while some individuals here illegally who have also committed serious felonies have been arrested and deported by ICE, we have also seen a broadening of the scope of immigration enforcement in this country, and many immigrants who only face civil immigrations of immigration law are being swept up, arrested, and deported from the country despite living here for 20 years and not having a criminal record. We have seen some DACA recipients being arrested after traffic stops. And of course, the administration would argue that even though they promise to only go after the worst of the worst, or at least to focus on that population, anyone who is in this country illegally is deportable and fair game for enforcement.
All right, paraphrasing James Baldwin, I believe what you do, not what you say. Let's talk about this gold card, which it's like a gold card with the president's face on it. It costs, is it $1 million or $5 million? $1 million. And if you pay $1 million, you get this card. What does it allow you to do?
The president has talked about this gold card for a long time. There is actually now a U.S. government process to actually request and apply for one. It entails applicants submitting an application fee for about $15,000. If they
So
pass,
the application fee is $15,000.
correct. If they
Sounds like
pass
seamless.
that initial round of vetting, they have to pay at least $1 million to the U.S. government, and then they would be promised a green card or permanent U.S. residency, which after 5 years can turn into American citizenship. And of course, there are still many questions about the legality of this action because it is a program, Vlad, that was not expressly and explicitly authorized by Congress. It also comes amid the administration severely cracking down on other forms of legal immigration from developing countries. So obviously, critics would say that there's a double standard here that is preferential to wealthy individuals.
Although it's not uncommon. I know that, for example, if you want to live in certain European countries, Portugal, for example, they do want you to have a certain amount of money invested in that country before you can actually get the visa. So I guess
many countries do offer a very similar immigration pathway, correct?
Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. Camilo, always good to have you on set because we really get into it, man.
Yeah,
I love that.
I love it.
I think our viewers do too.
Bueno, la noticia que acabamos de ver es impactante, por muchas razones. Una razón es que están hablando de dos cosas, no solo de una. La primera cosa de la que están hablando es que a más de 42 países les van a investigar aproximadamente 5 años de social media, o sea, de tus redes sociales, para juzgarte y de ahí definir si eres una persona apta para el país o no. Esto es muy grave, ya que si nos vayamos al extremo de los casos, si tú hace 5 años se te ocurrió poner una publicación en Facebook, en TikTok, en Instagram, que tu país no te gusta, que estás viviendo una situación injusta en tu país y que ojalá no vivieras en este país, y ellos deciden tomar esto en una mala manera, es posible que hasta no te permitan la entrada al país y pues te deporten porque van a argumentar que estas publicaciones fomentan que tú te quieras quedar en otro país ya que tu país no te gusta. Entonces, son noticias peligrosísimas para cierto tipo de personas que tal vez tengan acostumbradas, en especial estas generaciones, a expresar mucho en las redes sociales, a hablar de sus sentimientos, de lo que opinan, de la política. Entonces, esto abre la puerta mucho a la ilegalidad porque esto es meterse con tu vida privada, con tu libertad de expresión. Entonces, cada vez estamos notando que las condiciones para que tengas un tipo de visa son cada vez más estrictas, más duras, más complicadas. Entonces, definitivamente estamos ante un panorama que no nos beneficia a nadie. Alto. Lo siento, es que mi cámara no enfoca. Creo que voy a hablar para cambiar esta cámara, ya que me está causando muchos problemas. Listo. Como decía, este tipo de noticia es peligrosa. La segunda noticia de la que están hablando es de esta famosa Gold Card, que es una Green Card para inversionistas en Estados Unidos. Y como dicen en las noticias, sí, hay países que, claro que tienen este sistema en donde si tú inviertes y tienes cierta cantidad de dinero o de capital, por así decirlo, pues técnicamente, para el país te pueden autorizar la ciudadanía. Pero aquí se está hablando de $1 millón. O sea, es ridículo. ¿Me explico? Solamente las grandes élites de personas, de incluso pues, de sus respectivos países, podrían pagar un tipo de visa así. Entonces, de lo que se habla tal vez en la noticia es de que es algún tipo de chiste, es algún tipo de broma de mal gusto de Trump, es algún tipo de, pues no sé, de una táctica en donde tienes que pagar unas cantidades absurdas de dinero para que puedas tener tu residencia en el país. O tal vez es una estrategia de recaudación de dinero, tal vez un poco hasta ilegal, porque se prestaría mucho al lavado de dinero decir que te gastaste $1 millón en una visa. Pero no sé, esto ya es entrar en conclusiones más allá de mi entendimiento y de mi capacidad. A lo que voy es que todas estas nuevas noticias y estas nuevas estrictas leyes para que tú tengas visa te ponen en peligro. ¿Quieres una visa con nosotros? Necesitas un abogado. Contáctanos, haz tu consulta totalmente gratuita. Contáctame a las redes sociales de Shan Potts Law en Instagram, en TikTok, en YouTube y en su página web. Muy bien, muchas gracias. Pasemos a la segunda noticia. Esta, a diferencia de la primera, no se trata de un formulario más estricto, sino de una situación actual en el país. Pasemos a la noticia.
To Louisiana now, a federal crackdown on immigration continues as Border Patrol agents make arrests. Some businesses kept their doors shut. Now, one city official is calling for more transparency, claiming Border Patrol sweeps are leaving communities fearful. CBS News reporter Katie Weiss is live in New Orleans. So, Katie, you've been gathering data on just how many people have been arrested. What do we know about them? What can you tell us?
Sure. Good evening, Juliet. Yes. So far, the Department of Homeland Security says they're still continuing this Operation Catahoula Crunch, which is essentially a pursuit of removing dangerous criminals off the streets of the Big Easy. Now, we've been asking for a complete list of all of the 250 undocumented immigrants that they've arrested so far as part of this operation. But so far, a DHS spokesperson tells me that they're not able to provide such a list. And instead, they've been providing much smaller lists in kind of samples over the last week and a half since the operation first began last Wednesday. And so what I did is I went through all of the information that they had publicly released. I created a spreadsheet to analyze exactly how many people they've given us information about. So out of the 250 people that they've arrested so far in the last week and a half, we know information about 23 of those individuals. And of them, about 8 of the 23 are listed as being convicted of a crime. 15 of the 23 are listed as only having been arrested for a crime. 9 of the 23, so the majority of the people have been that were arrested were from Honduras. And then the most serious crimes that one of the persons that DHS arrested was convicted of was homicide, and another, they say, was convicted of rape. The least serious crimes involved a marijuana possession, that was a conviction, and another person who was only arrested for public urination. Now, again, remember, this is just a snapshot. Only 23 of the 250 people total that they've arrested during this operation. We continue to ask questions about the remaining individuals and where they're headed as well. There are several detention facilities across the Gulf Coast that they could be going to while they await deportation. Now, some state and city leaders have been calling for more transparency as well, trying to get more data on their own also about how this operation is taking hold. Even a Republican state leader, Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I think the president needs to take a step back and look at what's going on and try to relieve some of the fear in these communities for the people that are here legally. I want some clarity of why they taking people that have legitimate reason to be here working, that are in their homes fearful to go to work. Why are they picking them up?
And the Assistant Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Tricia McLaughlin, released a written statement to us earlier this week saying, quote, "For too long, the sanctuary policies of New Orleans have endangered the lives of citizens and visitors of its beautiful city." Juliet?
Yeah, Katie, we're also hearing that some of those targeted may not be undocumented. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. That's something that we've been seeing unfold over the last week, really. At the beginning of the week, we saw video of a young citizen woman running from agents as she was walking home from the store. Now we're starting to see more reports of people with legitimate work permits who have been approached by these Customs and Border Patrol agents. And then now we're also getting some information from our affiliate, WWL, about an incident where 2 men who showed up to work on a roof of a restaurant here in the town, in the city, I should say, came to show up for work. Customs and Border Patrol immediately approached them in the parking lot when they began their shift, put them in handcuffs into an unmarked SUV, drove them around the block, and then let them go. Our affiliate, WWL, spoke with one of the restaurant managers. Take a listen.
We watched one of the gentlemen reach into his wallet, present paperwork. And the next thing you know, they were in handcuffs and being driven off.
We did later find out that they took them around the block, just basically spun them around the block, and were trying to tell them that their papers were fake.
And I also spoke on the phone with the manager of that restaurant there. He told me it really left a bad taste in every customer's mouth that this all happened during the day while customers were there dining. And he said it was a disappointing sight. I also reached out to one of the men's family to ask them if they'd be interested in speaking with us about their experience for an interview. But his wife tells me they're still too shaken up and they're still just trying to get over it. Juliet?
Katie.
Did not comment to us when we asked.
Rodrigo Garcia tells CBS News that he is officially out of ICE custody after a federal judge in Maryland today ordered that he be released. Jake Rosen joins me now. Jake, this is a breaking news story. Not that the order came down. That happened earlier today, but the release has been achieved. Walk us through what we know.
Well, Major, what we know right now is that Kamar Garcia is likely on his way out of an ICE detention center in Pennsylvania, potentially going towards where his family lives in Maryland, potentially somewhere else. That we do not know. And this all stems from this ruling earlier today in which a federal judge said that there was no order for his removal, and thus the Department of Justice and Homeland Security cannot continue holding him in ICE detention. We should remind our audience that he was deported to El Salvador as part of those flights back in March. Attorneys representing him after his wife raised alarms about his whereabouts said that she had seen him in some of the pictures that were released from the PR put out by the Salvadoran government. And as a result, he was one of very few men who were able to go to court in the United States to stand up for due process. This judge, it only took, as justice moves slow in these cases, 7 or so months to get to this point. It took him being brought back here to face criminal charges. And then it took him being re-detained by ICE after a judge in that criminal case said that the Department of Justice did not have enough evidence that he would potentially be violent if he were to roam the streets or to go back to Maryland. And ICE re-detained him after that judge freed him from pretrial detention there.
Jake, we ask a lot of you in this justice space because many things happen day to day. Another thing happened today, different subject. Another grand jury presented evidence potentially to indict sitting New York Attorney General Letitia James, and that grand jury said no. Catch us up.
Yep, it's the second time in a week. A grand jury was set up this week in Alexandria, Virginia. That's where a group of Virginians said no, that they did not abide by over 50% to indict Letitia James for charges of alleged mortgage fraud. This same thing happened last week in Norfolk, Virginia, when the Department of Justice tried again. They've tried twice and failed twice now. But why, Major, do they keep continuing to do this? Well, it's because a federal judge from South Carolina was brought into Virginia to hear arguments last month on whether or not Lindsey Halligan, that former White House aide who was put into the Eastern District of Virginia to directly enact what President Trump had ordered on Truth Social to Attorney General Pam Bondi to prosecute his enemies. That included Letitia James, that includes Senator Adam Schiff, that includes former FBI Director James Comey. The Comey and Letitia James indictments were dismissed by this judge, and the Department of Justice has not appealed that ruling because the Trump administration's strategy for continuing this way of appointing prosecutors without congressional and Senate approval has failed in the appeals court, in district courts. And so now the Department of Justice did not comment to us when we asked if they're going to continue to do this. But our colleague Scott McFarlane reports that at least one Trump administration official said that it is likely the Trump administration is going to continue to attempt to indict Letitia James in Virginia in the coming days and weeks as we head to the new year.
And we will follow that if that transpires. And what
Bueno, no sé si me escuchan ya, creo que sí. Esta tercera noticia dice mucho, ya que primeramente habla del caso de una persona que se hizo muy famosa porque fue una persona que era un ciudadano estadounidense y que aún así fue tomada por ICE y que fue no solo detenida, sino deportada de regreso a Venezuela, que no es su país, simplemente fue deportada a Venezuela. Y esta persona, con la ayuda de un abogado, de hecho, de un gran abogado, logró pelear su caso y no solo ganó el caso, sino que lograron regresarlo de Venezuela a Estados Unidos y ahora está de regreso con su familia en Estados Unidos. Entonces, eso es una gran noticia porque hace notar que todavía hay legalidad en esta situación, todavía hay esperanza y todavía podemos hacer algo por ti. Sí. Entonces, nosotros también somos unos gran abogados, podemos ayudarte con tu caso y podemos hacer que si estás incluso ya deportado, puedas regresar a tu país y puedas estar con las personas que amas. La segunda noticia que habla este video es sobre esta administración de Trump que está tratando de atacar a personas que pues van contra los intereses y cómo el Estado de Derecho puede proteger a estas personas y los congresos o los más altos mandos niegan estas peticiones de la administración de Trump. Estos también son buenas noticias. Quiere decir que Estados Unidos seguimos en un buen Estado de Derecho y que Estados Unidos todavía tiene las posibilidades de poder combatir estas injusticias conforme al derecho convenga. Entonces, definitivamente Shan Potts es una persona que personalmente admiro y que está totalmente preparada para este tipo de procesos y podemos ayudarlos. Pues bueno, esta es la tercera y última noticia de este live, el segundo live que hago. Espero no haberlo hecho mal y espero la cámara no haya sido tan incómoda porque lo fue para mí. Sigue siendo para mí bastante incómoda, tanta desenfoque. pero esperemos que se pueda arreglar. Y les deseo lo mejor. Y por favor, contáctenos. Por cierto, habrá un live en TikTok en un momento. Ese es mucho más popular que este. Estamos tratando de hacer crecer los dos. Pero ahí pueden preguntar cualquier pregunta al abogado, ya que estará un abogado contestando preguntas en el live de TikTok. De hecho, creo que ya empezó. Así que gracias. Nos vemos.